This year, as gigs are canceled
and stages go dark,
it can feel hopeless.
Don't let the lights go out on you or your bandmates.
Your union brothers and sisters are here for you.
The AFM is fighting to get members help with unemployment assistance.
We're working in D.C. to help protect working people.
And we're standing up to get musicians back performing safely.
And most importantly, we want you to be healthy both physically and mentally.
Please reach out and check in on your friends.
It's okay to ask if they're okay, and it's okay to not be okay.
We will return again when the curtains call.
Until then, stay safe,
stay healthy,
stay positive.
Find more resources and assistance
at
afm.org/help.
And remember,
together we are stronger.
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 Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching us from and whenever you're watching us. Hey, this is another episode of Conical Supremacy. My name's John Noreko, and thanks again for tuning in with us today. We got a really great show for you, and I'd like to take a second and introduce my co-host, the guy who thought this thing up, Mr. Doug Tornquist. Hey, Doug, what's going on?
Hi, John. How you doing? Having a good day?
Yeah, it's not bad at all. How was your week this week?
My week was fine. A lot of teaching, a lot of practicing. Students are they're busy. They're working. It's good. The weather's changing here. Spring is coming. Everyone's getting excited about what might happen. There's a lot of optimism in the air.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that's probably one of the things for me is I might actually be going back to work in a couple.
I saw that in the newspaper. Good for you.
I let's hope so. That would really relieve my tedium at this point. I got a chance to go up and play with Jim this week, and that was a lot of fun. We were just playing tunes, which is always fun for me. I didn't get to practice enough this week because I've been having chop problems, man. And for everybody out there who has chop problems, come to find out now after playing tuba for almost 48 years, the best solution is to put it down. And that's just the way it is. And it's so aggravating for me because I look at it and it's like, I want to play. And then I look at my face and my lip's bleeding. So no, we're not going to do that. And in the old days, like when we were kids, we would just play right through it. Right. And because we had to, but, I'm getting tired of it. And I got to figure out what it is that I'm doing wrong, because it's just aggravating.
Maybe it was those Wilder trios we played.
No, which I am looking forward to. For those of you out there, Doug, I think we've talked about this before, but Doug is a huge Alec Wilder fan and has not only the duets, but the trios as well. And you have the original parts too, I believe, right?
Sure. I bought them. There was a brass conference at Long Beach State. It might have been 20 years ago. And the Margun, the publisher, Gunther Schuler's company, sent out a representative. And I remember it was in the Pyramid at Long Beach State, and there was a table with all the Margun things. And I saw all this stuff, Alec Wilder. I just bought every single thing that I didn't have. And, of course, Margun was sold. And you can still get some of that music, but a lot of it you just can't find anymore. It's just disappearing. So I'm glad I got it.
It's wonderful music. We had such a good time. At least I did. I had a great time playing those trios because I don't think I've done that since the early 80s as far as playing those things, right? In Dan's studio, but we have to record that stuff. It needs to be out there, and the duets I think are actually harder to play because they're not long, but he really sticks it to us, which is cool.
A lot of finesse required. Yeah. Jim Self tells a story that he actually played those duets, I think, at Indiana, with Wilder in the audience. No
way, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be freaking out. That's like your story with Kraft, right?
Well, that was the day to remember, yes.
Yes, a day to remember. I'm sorry to bring it up. Better forgotten, my friend. I'm sorry. So anything else this week talk about? You got any sessions coming up you want to talk about?
Week after next. So I have a recording for my Easter gig this week. So that's exciting.
It's something, right? And
any chance to leave the house, John, is cost consideration.
Dude, back at you. I mean, I drove up to Laurel Canyon this week just for, because I need to get out of the house.
Mission accomplished.
Anyway. Well, hey, do you want to jump into this thing right now, man?
Let's do it because we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we certainly do. We're really fortunate this week to have one of the premier trumpet players on the planet, in my opinion. I mean, what absolutely beautiful sound and beautiful musicianship, technique, you name it, this guy can do it. And we're going to play a little bit of bump him in right now. So check this out. Mr. Tom Poulson, how are you doing today, man?
Very good. I say good evening or good afternoon.
Well, good evening for you, my friend.
Sides, yeah.
Hey, man, can't thank you enough for being here with us today. It's a real treat for us. Thank you so much for staying up late. And I got to ask you, man, I mean, Doug and I, tuba players do the whole tuba and pedals thing and everything else like that, but you don't normally get to hear a trumpet player try to pull that stuff off. And I listened to that whole clip, and I also listened to you read the letters as well. For those of you out there who are want to check out that clip, it's on YouTube on Tom's page. But could you talk about why you decided to do something? I mean, was it because of the letters? Was it because of just what you were thinking musically at the time, or that whole thing bringing it together? Because I looked at this as more as a performance piece itself, like all intertwined. And I just love it when there's mixed media and all that kind of stuff that's going on from an artistic level. Could you kind of tell us about the impetus behind that, man?
Yeah, sure. It's so that's a piece called The Last Post. Originally, it was actually just came as a commission from a music festival right in the top of Scotland, on the Orkney Islands, so off the north coast. Originally just for like a trumpet concert, a new piece for a trumpet concert. But at this stage, it's maybe about 5-6 years ago now, I was getting not bored would be the wrong word, but I was sort of being, I don't know how you guys find it as well. It would have been like a 1 hour piece, and to have a 1 hour piece just of trumpet is maybe not the most interesting, maybe for non-trumpet players, shall we say?
Well, no, so I think, Tom, I think that's true of tuba players too, because, you know, unless you're in need of, you know, well, no, I'm not going to go there, but it's that same sound thing. And regardless of how well you play, I think the human ear likes diversity as far as that's concerned, different sounds coming at them in different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And then for me, so the other performer you saw in that clip, that's Alistair MacDonald, who's actually the composer of the piece, who's this amazing composer, also amazing live electronic musician, Tonmeister. So he was actually my teacher at music college for electroacoustic music. And so I approached him with this idea to do this piece, and it sort of snowballed from a trumpet piece with electronics, maybe talking about conflict. So this is like a super quick synopsis, but basically chatting to my parents saying, oh, we're thinking of doing this piece. And my mum was like, oh, well, you know, we've got all these letters that my granddad wrote during World War II. Over 100 letters that he wrote back from the front line. So we started reading them. Alistair found them super interesting. We sort of talked how we could work that. We then thought, well, if we're going to maybe read some of these letters, let's get a director in. So we got a voice coach director in. And so then what you see there at the end is this sort of, 1 hour. I think what you said, John, is perfect. A performance piece rather than like a concert piece. yeah, there was so it's snowballed, but it was a fantastic experience just for me to learn a piece like that, and also the family connections with letters from my grandfather, which I read during the piece. Also, actually, the audience are each given a letter also that they read to themselves. There's a moment in the piece, like a reflection moment, where we sort of turn everything down and they can then read a letter privately to them, and they have different letters to different people in the audience, so each gets a different story. But yeah, it was a cool piece to do, really cool piece.
So I have to ask. My grandfather's brother was killed in the Battle of Britain, and his other brother Joe ended up living in England for the rest of his life after the war. And did your grandfather make it home, first of all?
Yes,
So
thankfully, yeah.
yeah, and then you got to know him. Obviously, but to be able to read those letters, and because he was a young man at that time, and to put yourself into that situation, I mean, talk about an entirely different kind of life, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely. It's crazy to think of. Well, especially during these times as well. But the things we take for granted now, things that you would think are so, how would you say, so simple to us were such massive things, especially during this time. He was on, how would you say, D-Day Mark II. So
oh, no
the day
way!
after.
Wow!
And the lady he writes the letters to, who became my grandmother, they'd only met maybe 2-3 weeks before this. So they literally met, and then he was off for like the next 2 years. So it was interesting because how would you say? I'm trying to think of the right term. He was we'd say maybe a socialist pacifist, if that would make sense. So didn't agree with war, but felt it was his duty to do something. And
Right.
he spoke fluent German, so he actually acted as a translator and as a comms during the war. So it was really
Awesome.
interesting. He would never talk about this in modern times. So it was like a real, different story from him to read these letters.
So my last question about this piece for you, I know, and Doug, you probably chime in on this too. When you learn the history of not only the music that you're playing, but why the music was written the way it does, did you then approach the writing of, or did Alistair approach the writing of this piece differently because of the letters? You know what I'm getting at, as far as that's concerned. Was it you approaching it going, well, I need to kind of do it this way because this would have been this? Or was Alistair writing going, well, if that's the case, here's the emotional content, that comes from this? I mean, did you find yourself playing differently because of all that?
Yeah, I think a combination of both. I think in terms of the music creation from Alistair, it was completely influenced by the letters. He read the letters himself as well. But definitely for me, this performance element of it, you sort of put yourself in that place, and how that can then affect the colors I'm trying to make. Like we talk again as a brass player, I'm sure you guys have this as well. There's always this sort of dirty, forbidden word of making impure sounds or unpure sound. Everything has to be exact and 100%. And Alistair and Susan, our director, were both much more interested in those other sounds. And then when you think about what the content of letters and this time in war, is much, much more interesting to hear these broken in between sounds. And for me as a performer, that was amazing. You get this sort of freedom to say, just enjoy making whatever colors you feel respond best to the subject.
Yeah, as a jazz musician, I'm lucky enough to experience that on a regular basis, because the improvisational type of thing, it's kind of like you're never really hemmed in except to a certain type of style, and that's it, and whatever happens inside of that. But Doug, can you set up? Tom plays in this quintet that is ridiculous, and today earlier in the show, you guys were talking about, you've been a fan of the Stockholm quintet. I mean, Stockholm brass, correct?
Stockholm chamber brass.
So can you take it from me here? You've been a fan for 20 years, right? I mean,
well, sure. And the recordings that the Stockholm Chamber Brass made are like, these are the landmarks, the monoliths of brass quintet recordings. They record, you play in a brass quintet, it sounds pretty good. You think, I ought to record these. Well, guess what? The Stockholm Chamber Brass beat you to it. There's the two Jan Bach pieces, Rounds and Dances and Loudest. Nobody, I don't think, got the idea to record Rounds and Dances until Stockholm Chamber Brass did it. I remember playing that piece when it was brand new in '83, and I think somebody ought to record this, and there were no recordings of it. Well, Stockholm Chamber Brass did. They recorded also Loudest, which is a piece from the early '72, I think. They put a couple pieces on the map. The Hilborg Quintet for brass, which is, I think, one of the best pieces written in the last, what is that, 92? Was written?
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah. One of the best pieces written in the last 30 years. Also, the Paul Reuter's breakdance. So to me, the Stockholm Chamber Brass had this legendary kind of pedigree of recording some of my favorite music and some of the most important music. Whenever my students need to know, how does this piece go? I say, we'll get the Stockholm Chamber Brass CD. And so it turned out that I got to meet Tom. I brought him in to speak with my students at USC, and that went so well. And we said, Tom, would you be willing to come on our show and talk about, well, anything really. But, to play with the Stockholm Chamber Brass, to me, that's just a dream of a lifetime. What did you think when they said, hey, we'd like to give you a shot?
Well, maybe to clarify, also, like you said, Doug, I have always been a massive fan of Stockholm Chamber Brass. So I was in a brass quintet as a student for a long time when I studied in Glasgow, and we were exactly the same. Listened to the Stockholm Chamber Brass recordings. We always had a dream to play heavy metal, one of the very first pieces from Sven-David Sandstrom. And so, when this opportunity came up, it was like a dream opportunity, even to be considered to ask to come and do some test dates with the group. Weirdly, something I never thought would ever happen, being based in the UK at this time, and completely by chance had this opportunity.
But you had won, isn't it true? You had won a competition and you played this triple concerto for trombone, trumpet, and tuba, and that's where you were heard by a member of.
Yeah, so it was a brass competition in Germany. Has three separate strands, so trumpet, trombone, and tuba, and on the panel of the competition, there's two for each instrument. One of the trumpet panels was Urban Agnes, trumpet player, founder member of Stockholm Chamber Brass. One of the trombone panel was Jonas Bieland, founder member of Stockholm Chamber Brass. So, and again, just at this time, must have been 2013, 14, they had a vacancy had come up on the other trumpet position of the group. So it was complete right place, right time for that. And yes.
Serendipity is the beautiful thing, my friend.
Indeed, yeah.
Well, hey, let's get a taste of this. It's the Hildebrand, right?
Hilborg.
Yeah, Hilborg. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna hear the last few minutes of the Hilborg and hang on to your socks, because this is brass playing at its best, truly. Go ahead, Quinn. right, so I just wanted to take the ending because the last couple minutes, because it's truly where you guys and the pitch, my goodness, the pitch is just so perfect, man. I mean, it's got to be a joy. It's not thank you. I mean it. It's got to be a joy to sit in a group where everybody agrees at every single note exactly what it's supposed to be. I mean, without having to sit there and say, come on, man, what was with that? I mean, brass playing at its finest, in my opinion.
No, thank you. It's. I always find it interesting. Like, this video was still within like the first year of me joining the group, and I was you always hope this when you have colleagues, but the thing for me as soon as I joined the group was the trust that you have even as a new member. And I think that is partly why then we have this way of playing together, that it's sort of like, again, this piece. So two of the players in that group did the premiere of it. They've been playing it, hundreds of times. And I remember when I was on like a trial weekend with them, we played this piece and we got to it and I made a suggestion. Oh, maybe could we do something different here? A piece that they've done for 20 years. And the instant reaction was like, okay, yeah, let's give it a go. Not sort of
awesome.
like, whoa, this was written for us. And I think that's part of that. We feel we can all bring our own thoughts to the group, and then we find the way to make that balance and come all together.
Is it trust or is it respect or is it both? Because
good point. I guess both. I guess the respect for what everyone's done and is doing, but also definitely the trust. We all know, brass players, especially this, for some reason, because I sort of help with the programming, me and Jonas, we often program this as the last piece in our recitals. And, it's not an easy piece. And you just have to trust. You have to trust each other. You trust that you'll support each other, whatever's happening. And I think, that's quite a big part of it.
Go, Doug. Go.
I'm fascinated that you can make that you can play this repertoire and that you're able to focus on this. By that I mean, some of the greatest pieces of the 20th and 21st century. I can't think of too many other groups, too many other brass quintets that really have this either such an educated audience or have this luxury of being able to focus on this repertoire.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, how would you say, a testament to the work that especially Jonas and Urban have done, and the other founding members, but especially Jonas and Urban have kept with the group, that they've always had this goal and they've always searched out interesting composers to write. There's many stories about the different pieces, but Anders Hilborg is very good friends with Jonas with this piece. We're still working to try and get him to write a second quintet. We'll keep on pushing on that, I think, forever. But it's just the hard work that they did from the very beginning of the group, that already within the first years of the group, they were commissioning pieces. And then we constantly look to do that. We're in talks at the moment for new commissions, and it's I guess once you've established that as one of the core bits of the group, then at least it's a little bit easier to try and continue that idea.
And how many concerts a year would you play in a regular year?
I'm trying to think. In normal times, hopefully they return soon. We normally, I would guess, maybe it's easier to call it projects. Maybe we would do around 12 projects, and that could be, like a concert like that, which was like a showcase concert in a composer festival, or it could be a tour, say, to the US. And so, I would say probably within that, maybe we do about 20 concerts, but more projects is probably a best way to describe it, 12 projects.
So that would involve recitals and possibly recordings as well. And around here anyway, the hardest part of doing chamber music is negotiating orchestra schedules and teaching schedules. Has that been an issue for you as well?
Oh yeah, big time. We're big fans of Doodle. So often, even just to find rehearsals, we could be planning 6 months in advance. For rehearsals, we've got, my trombone colleague is a professor in Germany and in Norway. My trumpet colleague is a professor in Germany. Our horn player Anamia is a full-time principal horn in a symphony orchestra, 100% job. Sammy, our tuba player, is a freelancer full-time, and then I'm a bit in between. I have a 60% orchestral job and then do my freelancer. So we have to be very organized. And then we talk a lot about it at our own course with student groups. We have to be willing to sacrifice time. And so we have done some crazy ideas of like meeting to, we often, there was a period a couple of years ago, we were learning a massive piece by Mike Svoboda, American composer. And the only time we could get to rehearse it was after gigs.
Yeah. So
we do a gig, we take half an hour, 40 minutes to cool down, mentally, and then do a 2-hour rehearsal to learn this new piece. And it's what you have to do. You have to sacrifice things sometimes.
I mean, I'm glad all of you are so busy when this isn't going. No, seriously. I mean, it's lovely to hear that. It truly is. And you should be. Everybody plays so well, and I'm just glad to see that happening. But because of COVID, and Doug and I kind of started this whole program about what people were doing to keep busy and stuff like that. And we were talking earlier in the show about the fact that you guys have been able to rehearse a little bit more because of COVID, which is kind of cool. And in Sweden, as long as you take care of yourself and everything around you, then everything's kind of cool, right? So you guys have been able to get together and play. And do you want to set up? We've got a couple of videos that we'd like to play, but do you want to set up the first one for us, Tom, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So this was, we felt because we had some time to meet, and we were able to be borrowing a church that wasn't being used, so we had our own space to be safe, that we thought it would be nice anyway to meet. And we were working on some newer pieces, but also looking at some of our arrangements that we wanted to catalog, really make sort of recordings for. We thought we could use the time to just record some rehearsals, see what came out from that. But it's very interesting time in Sweden that we feel very privileged also with my orchestra to be doing so much compared to so many other countries. I've got many friends in the UK that are in such a similar situation. So I guess in the States, where I saw actually a friend put up a post today, it's a year since his last gig to the day.
Yeah.
We're very spoiled in comparison here, and definitely we feel very lucky for that. It's not taken for granted.
Well, I would really like to play this video right now, if you don't mind. Here's once again some great brass playings. So everybody check this out. All right. So I got to ask, Tom, did you say, I don't want to play pick today?
No.
No.
The thing is, it was Urban's arrangement, so he made those decisions for himself. And
There you
so
go.
He can only blame himself. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's wonderful pick playing. Do you guys ever switch off, like, just trade out, or, especially on pieces that you've rehearsed? I don't feel like doing the first part today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would say for that, normally we're quite sort of fixed, but definitely within the whole program, we're always mixing, and we do think about that then when we program to have a sort of balance with each other. At the moment, we also play to each other's sort of specialities, like Urban comes from a pop background originally and can do loads of things that I can't even touch. I come from the more sort of high contemporary background, so I might take more lead if we're doing some real sort of like avant-garde stuff. But we find a way to balance each other.
Well, I think you guys play off each other just absolutely wonderfully. Doug, yeah, go.
I have a question. As someone, I coach a lot of brass quintets, and what I'm most impressed with your group's sound is. Number one, there's such a refinement and a clarity, and what's coming through the recordings is possibly a lightness in your playing, which produces this clarity. But what would you say? I have two questions. One is, what's your opinion of something that makes a brass quintet just sound better than the others? What is kind of one of the secrets of the Stockholm Chamber Brass? And then the second one is, did you find where you came from, which I assume was the UK, did you find a different style of playing or different expectations in brass chamber music? Is it regional at all?
Okay, so question one for the group sound. I think maybe, and this is one thing definitely for student groups also to keep in mind, is when the group started back at the end of the 80s, they were rehearsing nearly every day for like a really long sustained period of time. Most of them were students. Urban was already had his orchestral job at this time at the Philharmonic, but they would just rehearse all the time, and they just rehearsed for each other. The plan was never to do even concerts, it was just to rehearse. And so because they were just like living, in each other's pockets, that was originally where the Stockholm Chamber Brass sound came. They just played, and they didn't want to, impersonate anyone. So they were just like, we'll find our own sound, whatever that is, whether that's right or wrong, but we'll find our own sound. And I think that's sort of what's continued. Definitely, like the group now doesn't sound like the group did sound when it started, but that's not a bad thing. But it's always been that we just try to be true to the five of us in the group, and of course respect where the sound has come from, but see what we can add. So I think probably that's like the main thing. Originally just playing together loads, and then learning to balance sound, like especially for us in the trumpets, me and Urban often just meet the two of us to play. And for the first maybe 2.5 years, 3 years in the group, when I was in Sweden, I was still living in the UK. When I would come to Sweden to work with the group, I would stay with Urban. So we'd be eating meals together, watching telly together, practicing together. And so for me in particular, like Urban has such a special sound that it's, I just want to try and breathe that in, take it in as much as I can. So I think for sound, that's probably where the group came from, that we definitely don't try to sound like anyone else, not out of any disrespect or anything, but just we be true to ourselves and sound like us five sound. So I would say that would be that sort of side of things.
And it's always been, and I might be biased, but I found that in a brass quintet, the most essential connection, tuba, first trumpet. You two have to be exactly of the same mind. The others can kind of fit in, but if the tuba and the first trumpet are not in agreement, it's probably not going to happen. Is that your...
Absolutely. I think because, this question always in any chamber music, but especially in brass quintet, is where does the lead come from? And I think it's so easy to assume that comes from the top. If you think like orchestral world, the leader of an orchestra is the first violin. And you do hear that sometimes in orchestras, that the balance, or not necessarily sound, but also ensemble is in the wrong place. And so it's got to be a responsibility from all five in the brass quintet, but particularly, I would 100% agree, that they have that connection. We're very lucky, like in particular, me and Sammy get on very well, but also Urban and Sammy come from very similar backgrounds with this pop and rock background, so they feel the pulse of a piece in the same way, which means then it's so easy for us to jump on and just join them with it.
Right. So the time is felt bottom to top, and the time doesn't change, and then you guys are able to fill in and just say, all right, well, this is it. So all I have to do is hang on and play. So, which is lovely.
You hear that sort of bit of that flow in that scarlatti. We're doing so much, passing between.
Right.
But the trust of the groove is there for all of us, and from that sort of bookends of the group.
Well, hey, did you get to the second question, Doug?
I didn't. Sorry.
All right, good.
So I would say definitely there is a difference in the approach to brass quintet playing. It's always interesting. I find in the UK we have some phenomenal groups in the UK, and it's sort of maybe obviously dominated originally by Philip Jones, which I would say is one of the very first and most leading lights of it. There's now amazing groups such as like Onyx Brass is absolutely fantastic, who are doing a lot of commissioning, a lot of music. But maybe in the UK, it's more often the repertoire we play is probably a bit lighter for brass quintet, and you hear that then in the sound and also in the way a group functions. That it's maybe not as how the depth of sound maybe isn't always as there, but it depends from group to group, of course. But I think that was one of the main things I found with SCB joining that group, is just that real core focus on the sound first and foremost. Sound, and then the groove, not necessarily playing together, but being in the same flow.
Right.
Which is I think that's one of our most core things that we try to do in the group.
Well, I'm really glad you said that, man, because that's a great lead in for my next question, which is in our next video. You took some time, and here's another COVID recording, if I'm not mistaken, but this is one of your arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And because of what you just said, when you're putting something like this together, you have these people in mind. So it's going to sound with these people in mind, correct? I worked in a band for a long time where the writer of the band had these particular individuals in mind. So he would write towards our strengths and stuff like that, which I'm sure you did the same thing, and thus creating this unique sound that is not only Tom Poulson, but also this group as well. And do you think that's, well, first, is that a good thing? And second is, I think it's a good thing, but there's an evolution of sound this way as well. So a forward momentum going with the group as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely as an arranger, I'm always thinking whoever I arrange for, whatever size of the players specifically, and also the group as well. And like with this Madrigal suite that I arranged for the group, I was very interested in really respecting the original text. And like there's some recordings I just loved listening to when I was starting to arrange this. But coming back to that trust thing, I knew I could trust my colleagues in the group that we could take the risks to make that sound, almost a little bit like we talked about at the beginning with the last post, this risk of the sound almost breaking, almost being impure, which actually gives it proper purity. So definitely for me, it's much more, how would you say, liberating as an arranger, but also as a musician, to be able to write specifically for players and for groups that you know.
Yeah, and these are lovely, man. I have to admit. And Quinn, let's take a listen to the first one, please. All right, so what we all love to do in a brass quintet is play that kind of stuff. It's just so joyous as far as I'm concerned. Being able, but what kills me about you guys, and Doug, you're probably thinking the same thing. The end of the phrase is you guys are so together. It's just like, this is where it's just going to end. And everybody knows that. And then we're going to move on. And it's like effortless. And kudos to you, man. I mean, the music, just lovely, lovely playing.
Do you work all that out in rehearsals, Tom? Did you have to say, retard here, so-and-so's leading this, and this person gives the last note? Or do you just communicate without words and make it happen?
In general, the second option. So it's sort of again, it's the trust of it that it's we just follow each other, and whoever is with, especially as a trumpet player, it's very easy, especially a piece like that where the trumpets are mainly on the top melody line. But you just be open. You have ears as big as you can. Yeah. You just trust each other, and maybe one of my colleagues has a great inspiration, and they want to show that, and then we just trust them that that's the right inspiration, and we go with it.
See,
that was your rate. Beautiful.
Beautiful. That's just beautiful stuff. Hey, let's listen to another one, please. Here, play the next one, Q. I mean, it's just great playing. English Suite. So we're going to play the third one coming up here in a second, but were these tunes? Yeah, don't we? Okay. So the reason why you chose this stuff was near and dear to the heart, or because of research, or obviously you're from the UK, so this kind of sticks home a little bit, that sound, that whole feeling, melodically especially. But why these particular tunes for you?
Originally, sometimes these things just came out of necessity. Actually, we needed some new things, and also we were doing some concerts where we needed some smaller size things, so some stuff for trios and quartets, and friends had recommended there's so much amazing English Renaissance songs. So it began actually with smaller versions, and then I just started listening and hearing all this, how much possibilities there are, and led to now there's so we have a suite for trio, suite for quartet, and then this suite now for quintet, which is about 7 movements of it. So it just came from that, and then the brain starts thinking, what can you do? And like we were talking about, when you know the players you're writing for, obviously there's no way I could just assume that the other trumpet player can play drums at a top level like Urban can. And it's a shame, because that's only how would you say, that's 1% what Urban can do on the drums. We have an arrangement of the 3 dances from the Soldier's Tale from Stravinsky. And so normally, that's for 7 players, and it's an extremely complicated percussion part. Urban plays all those percussion parts with double pedals and left hand at the same time as playing piccolo to match the sort of the violin lines. And it's just it's ridiculous what he can change with his brain.
There's guys that, man, I mean, good for him. I mean, to find that type of thing. But then again, that's what happens when you have winter. You have plenty of time to practice.
Can I ask, Tom, did you play a lot of brass chamber music in your training, before you started your career? And if so, what was that like? What's the curriculum like? What was it like for you?
I definitely did. Yeah, we formed actually a group in my first year of bachelor in Glasgow. I studied at the Conservatoire in Glasgow, but we were particularly lucky that, our head of brass, Brian Allen, he was from the Fine Arts Brass group, which was one of the UK's main groups for a long, long time. And our principal, who then was my teacher in my late years, was John Wallace, who was played with Philip Jones brass, had the Wallace collection, still has the Wallace collection. They're now back playing. So we were always encouraged to do this stuff, but it was never, not an official part of the curriculum. It was more, if you want to do it, we'll help. And I was, like with SCB, I was very lucky that I had 4 colleagues who are still extremely close friends to this day, that we just wanted to play. And we did, like SCB did at the beginning, we'd often be in, especially at the weekends, as soon as the building opened, we'd just have a day to rehearse. We'd go eat lunch together, come back, pray more, then do more, have dinner, and come back and rehearse again. And it was just, especially when you're a student, you've got time. So why not?
And for us in America, that the basis of any brass quintet it's Bach chorales and Gabrielli and so that informs our sound concept. Is it that way for you?
It's similar. We had a teacher who was obsessed with us playing Holborn, Anthony Holborn. So again, English Renaissance, sort of a little bit after Gabrielli, I guess. But he was just obsessed. You have these books of 100 5-part pieces. Just play these, understand your roles in the group, understand your intonation in the group, understand how to be independent and agree. Too often I think we just assume to be good chamber musicians you have to agree, but it will never work if you just agree. You have to have independence. And so we were sort of drilled on this almost for our first year as a group. Get these things in place, and then the thing is, then you can play anything, because then you can understand how you work as a chamber group.
Agreed. And I assume you have a very deep commitment to new music, avant-garde music, 21st century music. Is that a personal pursuit of yours, strength?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like a weird thing, when I was a student at college, so when I was like 18, 19, I had no interest whatsoever in modern music, which sounds weird now because that's what I've dedicated like my last 10 years to doing. It just became a passion. There was a couple of trumpet pieces that got me interested. You sort of begin the path, start to understand the language a little bit more. And so now, yeah, not just with the quintet, I play with the modern music group here in Stockholm as well. And it really is my passion, and also a sort of passion to try and not, how would you say, not open people's eyes, but show them how much music is in this music. It's so easy for us to think 20th century music, 21st century music is so disconnected, but everything is, Schoenberg is super connected to what's come just before him. And actually then all the new composers, you can see the path through, like Schoenberg, and then onto more extreme serialism, onto more avant-garde. Now it's all music. It's just maybe a slightly different language to what we're used to hearing. And we have to, often for us as performers, the more we perform it, it's weird, the more people perform modern music, often the more dedicated they get to it, because they start to hear the things and all the beautiful phrases and lines, in a piece that maybe doesn't actually have any pitch, but is still beautiful music. And it's just part of a listening experience. Same as if I was to listen to, I don't know, I cannot honestly say that I listen to much country music. And if I was to listen to it, maybe I wouldn't get much emotion from it the first time. But if I really listened to a lot of it and different versions of it, I'm sure I would find it amazing. But you have to spend time listening to it.
Well
I tell students this, and I tell people this, and some of the best musicians I know are not players, but they're listeners, and they're able to focus and learn. And I think that's one of the big things as musicians, and I try to strive in my students and the people around me, is to learn to listen. And it's kind of an esoteric concept, but if once you learn what you're listening for, what things happen, how to pull things apart and listen to what's really going on, it's like the doors swing open and all of a sudden, wow, man, that's really all it is, and how cool that is. Doug and I talked to Doug about this a lot, and about, especially since I'm always trying to figure out why it sounds the way it does, or what did they do here to make it sound this way, and both thematically and orchestrationally, and I've always had a bit of a disconnect with 20th century music because I'm such a romantic at heart, but when you really get into it and you really start figuring out what it is that they're doing, I think you're absolutely correct. It's like an aha moment going, oh, I get it now. And this is really, really cool. Right. Doug, you're working on that unaccompanied piece that you had written for yourself. And a lot of people would, and you should hear this, Tom. He's playing the living snot out of it. It sounds great. But but no bar lines. It's up to you to figure it out. And it's still beautiful. And that's no, seriously. There's the ideas, the themes, and how it's put together and everything. And you would not think that by listening to it. I mean, it's unmeasured. It's kind of up to the player to figure it out. But the same thing in the jazz idiom. What does the music truly want you to say? And that's when you get and this is one thing that I struggle with a lot, but I'm getting there, is to take the ego away and let the music dictate what's going to happen. And I think that's the truism in 20th century music, and the challenge is to take that ego, that self, away and just be the conduit for the music itself. And that's how I really got into 20th century music, was pulling that whole thing away and letting the music dictate what's going on. And Doug, you do that very well. I wish we had a couple of clips of some of the more 20th century avant-garde type things that you've done besides the thing at the beginning. However, this next piece that I'd like to pull up right now, Tom, it's you kind of get a taste of everything. But we were talking about this when you first got the gig with the quintet, and this is, I think, 2014 Q, something like that. 2016. And this is that triple concerto. And first of all, wow. Second of all, the orchestra sounds friggin' fantastic. And what an absolute joy to not have to worry about that. But this has got elements of everything going on in it. Do you mind setting this up for us just a little bit, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So this piece was written by American composer Mike Swoboda, who's also an absolutely phenomenal trombone player. He's lived now, I would say, I don't know, maybe 30 years now in Europe. He's based in Switzerland now, but it was after the competition we did, the three of us who were the winners of the instruments, it was the 10th anniversary of the competition. And so they thought to celebrate that, they'll commission a new piece. And this concerto was created for us. And it was interesting because the three of us, myself, Sebastian and Ruben, we'd never played together. We didn't know each other before the competition. So we were sort of chucked in. But weirdly, I've played now, obviously with the concerto, but many times with them. Ruben's played a couple of times with us in SCB as a guest, and both Ruben and Sebastian have played with my larger brass group, my 10-piece brass group, which is in Germany, called World Brass. So it's sort of, yeah, again, we weren't a chamber group that we've played together before doing this concerto, but if you're musicians who want to do it, you can always find that way to make it chamber music.
Well, I'd like everybody to check this out. I think we're gonna. It's what, 5 or 6 minutes, Quinn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna let the whole thing play because I think it's worth checking out. So why don't we put that up right now? Hang on to your hats. This is awesome. I had Quinn keep that up because I think that's what was written there is just awesome. To be honest with you, it's just really cool stuff. Once again, Tom, sublime playing, man, and the three of you, holy crap! I mean, just wonderful, wonderful playing. What an interesting piece too.
Yeah, it's,
You know,
it's a special one.
well, I don't think it's. I think it's more than special because a lot of folks would sit there and go, "Well, is it really tonal?" And to my ears, yeah, it's very tonal. And we associate 20th century music with so much atonalness that I really think that that's not the case most of the time. As long as you broaden your horizons as far as what tonality can be and what it is today. I mean, I even think even in this decade, people are still pushing the envelope as far as tonality, and there's this thing that's coming back around that I find to be really, really cool, where we've got this lack, some, a bunch, and all of that fusing together now in possibly a new style of writing, if we want to call it that, an amalgam, as it were. Doug, are you thinking the same thing?
Well, sure. I mean, seems like there's less rules than ever, and that's good. What I love about that piece is it, like all the best concertos, it kind of captures the soul of the instrument. Some wonderful things from the tuba, the trombone, and the trumpet. It must have been such a joy to play, and what a night to remember, and what a door was open for you, Tom, with that performance. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, what a career, and you're just getting started. Look at all the stuff you've done. And
thank you.
Yeah, truly, Tom. Can you talk a little bit about your the 10-piece group that you have right now?
Yeah, sure. So it's a group called World Brass, which is like the clue in the name. The group's based in Germany, but the players are based all over. So they're like with World Brass, we're the complete opposite of SCB in terms of COVID time. So we, as a group, we haven't met for now 15 months was the last time we played, end of our New Year's tour, because I'm in Sweden, our bass trombone's in Norway. A few of our members are based in Germany, one's in Scotland, one's in Slovenia, was in Australia for a long time. And so, it's a group that's also is similar age to SCB. It's approaching now sort of maybe 25 years as a group. And again, it's just very similar ideas, also very keen to commission new pieces, but also do play a lot more mixture of music. We at home playing how would you say it, like Besame Mucho, Latino lay type music, and then of course more the lighter arrangements. And it's for me it's fantastic because it's sort of so fun to play with my guys in SEB, but it's also so fun to play with the World Brass because everyone is so different. So the groups work in very different ways, which is great to see because you can take things from each and learn all the time. So it's also a great pleasure to play with those guys.
Yeah, because I mean, as a 10-piece brass group, what comes to my mind, and I'm a big fan, is the German brass, obviously, because they're just wonderful instrumentalists. What is with your group? What defines you different? Is it the repertoire thing, or is it where you guys are coming from personally, or the group? I mean, because those guys have a similar thing where they get together and they live all over Germany and they get together and they get and play. However, with you guys are dealing with a larger, obviously, from all over Europe and coming together in Germany to play. And I would think there would be a different dynamic as far as that's concerned, and a different, and a cooler, a lot more people bringing different things to the table as opposed to this German thing. And don't get me wrong, I mean, those guys are something else, but your group seems to be a little bit more, how shall I put it, cosmopolitan Would that be a good
Yeah,
term?
I think that's a very good way of putting it. I think since the group was started, like my trumpet colleague Chris has been sort of the music director with the group. It's always been a focus that whatever style of music we play, it's like 100% committed to it. So if we're going to play, like we have a couple of really great Duke Ellington suites, like the Far East, an arrangement of the Far East suite, and sacred concerts and things like this, then a lot of we've got a couple of members who are maybe more jazz orientated, but mainly we're classical players. So of course, then if we're going to play a piece like this, then we get a proper jazz musician in to coach us, because it's all very well us saying, oh, it should be this sort of, how heavy is it swung, or this sort of articulation, but we're not talking with this sort of experience that you jazz guys have. So we're not going to assume we know it better. We'll get guidance on it. Same if we're playing Renaissance music or Baroque music, that we get people in to really help us then be able to find our proper approach to it. And I think, that's with World Brass. It's really, we play music written specifically for us in the last year, but then we play right through jazz, right through late romantic classics, Shostakovich type pieces, right into early music.
See, I think that's brilliant, and truly, and like for Doug, he's got the teaching at USC. You have that resource where you can actually go to somebody and say, "Look, we're playing 17th century music. You're a 17th century music scholar. Can you help me out?" I mean that those type of things. Whereas just a bunch of guys getting together, how are we going to do that? And luckily for you guys, since history comes from Europe. You guys have got it all there. So, which is, hey, I'm fine with it. But I'm first gen. I know, believe me. I'm truly happy for you, Tom, and so impressed, man. That like we were talking in the earlier show, that you're this busy. I truly think that you deserve it. And I think everybody out there needs to take a lesson from Tom, as far as, if you want to be busy, this is how you do it. And I'm not kidding, because you've got a great balance going on, man, where you're playing a number of different styles of music all the time, and I'm sure that's keeping your head healthy and your chops healthy as well. I mean, so many of us are stuck where, and Doug, you know this all too well, better than I do almost, where it's Ride of the Valkyrie every friggin' day. We're going to hammer away at this stuff. We're going to hammer away at this. I got to get a job. And to me, you're missing out on some of the really great stuff out there that could spark an idea or bring you to a different place, and still be able to do that stuff. And not only that, but make that stuff better. Because I really think playing multiple styles makes all the styles better, because you're able to bring these different disciplines to bear. And, well, this is just like this. Well, I already know how to do that, so let's do that type of thing. Anyway, I hate to say this, but we're kind of out of time. And Doug, please, can you finish this up here, man? Because what a great choice today. And thank you so much for getting this straightened out.
We want to thank you, Tom, for staying up so late. It's now well after midnight in Stockholm, and so thank you for that. Thank you for sharing with us. Your playing is so impressive, and you, from where I sit, you've got the dream job. You get to do everything, and you get to do it at the highest level, and you live in a beautiful place. So, congratulations. Yeah, if you could bottle it and sell it.
If only. But thank you guys. It's absolute pleasure. Well worth staying up for. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that.
Great work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, just a little program reminder. Once again, Mr. Tom Poulson, you can check us out. Today's episode will be archived on YouTube on the Tuba page or my page. Please check that out in case you missed it. Just a little program note for next week. If I'm not mistaken, we got Mr. Robert Tucci as our guest next week. So for those of you out there who know that, you got to tune in for this one. This is we got the granddad of granddads coming in next week, and holy crap, I'm really looking forward to it. But Doug, anything else you want to say on the way out, man?
Nope. Thank you so much, Tom. It was great hanging out with you once again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Mr. Tom Poulson, and everybody out there. Really appreciate everybody tuning in to another episode of Conical Supremacy. We'll be back again next week on Sunday at 3:00. And everybody have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, or a wonderful morning. And that's to you, Tom. So anyway, thanks a lot, folks. And we'll catch you again next week. Peace out, everybody. Bye.